Well, let's start with the fact that Israel is lying about its objective in Palestinian territories. They're not out to defeat Hamas. They can't defeat Hamas. What they're out to do is to expunge all Palestinians from territory they currently operate, that they live on. They want it's a form of genocide. It's a form of extermination. Um, the the piece I wrote that you're showing right now, revisiting the October 7th Hamas attack, and Scott early on was right on top of this, pointing out that even though the Israeli propaganda machine kicked into overdrive almost immediately to portray this as some sort of blind rage attack by Hamas, that all they wanted to do was rape and kill and commit all sorts of heinous crimes, the reality was it was actually a pretty professional military operation on their part. The one goal was to attack military targets and kill Israeli military personnel, which they did. They knocked out 72 of the Golani Brigade, which is, at least a highly respected unit, or was. And then object number two, capture as many civilians as possible. That's why all those cars that were mangled, burned messes that are stacked up in a junkyard look like they do, because Hamas had potential captives and hostages in them, and the Israeli Air Force blew those up, destroyed those. And then the news that's coming out every day, more news about the fact that it was the Israeli military killing civilians on October 7th. It was not Hamas. Hamas was not deliberately targeting and killing civilians. That was the Israeli occupation force. They were doing that. And it's not coming from Hamas people saying that. That's coming from Israelis who were there and who witnessed it. And then people say, oh, how could that be? Well, we've seen over the last week when the Israeli army shot and killed two of its own people, or three of its own people who had been hostages, who got away. They came out, no shirt on, naked from the waist up, waving a white flag, and got shot. Two separate Israeli soldiers shot it. So this was not the fault of some knucklehead who just got a happy trigger finger. What this illustrates is that Israel has a shoot to kill against any Palestinian, armed or unarmed. And then, what's becoming apparent, there was a time where I used to have some respect for the Israeli military. They're a dangerous clown show across the board. That the fact that these soldiers don't have proper rules of engagement, or the rules of engagement they have violate the rules of war, number one. They had this, they're not even good at their propaganda. They tried to create a propaganda video about 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago, where they got all these guys, these Palestinians, lined up in their underwear, claiming they're Hamas. They're not. And this chubby guy comes out from behind. Now, they're in their underwear. He's in his underwear. He's got an AK rifle in his left hand and an empty magazine in his right hand. And he walks up and puts it down. First question is, how do you disrobe somebody and then give them a damn gun? Who does that? I queried one of my buddies tonight he served in Vietnam with the Army. And his name is Larry too. I said, hey, Larry, when you were going through basic training, didn't they instruct you that you first, if when you capture someone from North Vietnam, that you strip them to their underwear and then you hand them a gun, right? And he goes, no, of course not. But the best part of the story is that then you get another video, the same video it looks like, except this time the guy's got the rifle in his opposite hand, in his right hand, and the magazine's in the left hand. So they were staging this. And you got to step back and say, what amount of pot or narcotic were they on when they thought this up? Because it makes them look stupid. They are stupid for doing it. So the entire point of my piece is just that what we've seen is a military that's out of control, that's unprofessional, that's poorly trained, that's poorly led, and they are wantonly killing civilians.
Scott, if you want to jump in.
I mean, literally, I think, Larry said it all. Look, the Israelis have their policy is to commit genocide against the Palestinian civilians. They have a doctrine, the Dhaiphong doctrine, named after the West Beirut suburb that they blew away in 2006 because Hezbollah kicked their butts on the battlefield. So they said, well, if we can't beat them militarily, we'll punish the civilians so much that they'll never allow Hezbollah to fight us again. How's that working out, Israel? But then they implemented that repeatedly against the Palestinians. And what we're seeing right now is basically Israel knows that it can't militarily defeat Hamas. I mean, I'm not on the battlefield, but I can just tell you that common sense dictates that when an opponent that is well prepared as Hamas was, and Larry pointed out, this attack on October 7th was one of the finest military raids conducted in modern history. The intelligence in preparation, the training, the tactics of Hamas were, impeccable. They had fantastic intelligence. They knew what they wanted to do. They know who they wanted to do it to, where they needed to go. They knew the timings, and they executed it. Then they came back. The reason why they took all those people hostage was to create bait. And then you create so that Israel now has to come into your battlefield. Now, if you took all the time and effort to plan this October 7th event, do you think that, and you were trying to lure Israel in, do you think maybe that you had prepared this trap, that you were anticipating what Israel could do? Of course they did. They knew that Israel was going to bomb the living crap out of the above ground. That's okay from Hamas perspective, because A, you create cities of rubble that now make it impossible for Israel to operate effectively. They should have learned that from, say, Stalingrad or Monte Cassino. But below ground, you have 500 kilometers of tunnels that aren't just haphazard. These tunnels have been thought out in advance. Majority of these tunnels don't terminate on the surface. If you take a look at the Hezbollah videos, when their guys are emerging, you'll see that they've had to open up a thing and clear out about 6 to 8 feet of earth to get out of the tunnel. Why? Because the Israelis can't come in with some basic, ground penetrating radar and detect it. And what happens here when Israel clears out their berm area where their guys are sitting in the middle resting with alleged security around? Hamas pops up right in the middle of it. Okay, thank you very much. Bap, 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 bap. Back down. Then they blow the tunnel so that it doesn't connect with anything. Hamas has prepared this battlefield for a decade. They know exactly what to do. There's no way this Israeli conscript force. Larry, what's the average age of an American Marine major?
Probably 32.
Yeah, not 23 though.
Right.
Yeah. Okay,
yeah.
So you got these Israeli majors, field grade officers, 23. What's the average age of, say, a staff sergeant?
Yeah, about 28, 29.
But not 19.
Yeah.
Okay, so what we got to understand is you have this army, this Israeli conscript army, that is putting people in command positions. Look, when I was a captain, I was a pretty good Marine. I'm not bragging, but I was okay. I was all right. But I have to tell you, every time somebody hit me with a problem, I went, Staff Sergeant, Gunny, come in here and educate the captain, please. And the only reason why I was really good is I had really good staff NCOs who backed me up, who kept me doing the right thing, who didn't hesitate to come in and say, Skipper, you don't want to do that. No, why not? Oh, yeah, you're right. I don't want to do that. And things work. Now, imagine a 19-year-old sergeant. A 19-year-old sergeant. That means he was conscripted at 18. He's gone through a year of training, and now he's a sergeant. And he's going to be advising his 23-year-old major about what? All the experience he has, all the extensive combat. The Israeli army is a joke. It is a literal joke. They're good at beating up 10-year-old boys. They're good at raping girls. They're good at murdering women, and that's all they're good at. They're not good at fighting. They're really not good at fighting. Russians who fought in Mariupol, fought in Bakhmut, are looking at the tactics that the Israelis are using in Gaza and saying they'd all die. If you took those Israelis and put them in Bakhmut or Mariupol, they'd all die. Now, I know that they're not fighting, a large conventional army, but their tactics suck. They suck. And it's not just that they're bad soldiers. They're bad people. Now we come to what Larry talked about. The murder of those 3 Israelis proves that the Israeli army has shoot to kill orders. And you know what's interesting about that? It's a war crime, a literal war crime. You're not allowed to do this, but they do it. They have a doctrine called the gospel, not a doctrine, but a plan called the gospel plan, the Hasbara plan. It's AI generated. They've broken Gaza down into target packages determined by a computer that says when you drop a bomb on here, this is how many civilians you kill. Why the hell do you need to know how many or predict how many civilians you kill? And then you drop the bomb anyways, because your whole purpose is to kill civilians. That's what the Israelis are doing right now. And here's the sickest part. Joe Biden has given them a green light to kill as many Palestinians as they can up until the end of the year. And that's what's going to happen, ladies and gentlemen. Not because Israel thinks they can defeat Hamas. They can't. They know Hamas is going to survive this conflict. What they're trying to do is terrorize the Palestinian people so much that when this is over, the Palestinian people will never let Hamas do on October 7th again. And it's going to backfire because the Palestinian people have rallied around Hamas like they've never rallied behind them before. If there was an election today in Palestine, Hamas would win across the board. 76% support right now. That's amazing. You can't destroy them militarily. Politically, you've empowered them, and the Palestinian people are behind them. This has backfired like you wouldn't believe on Israel. And Israel's suffering what I call a strategic defeat right now. And if they're not careful, the whole solution was always, the solution, the school book solution was always a 2-state solution. Everybody talked about 2-state solution. Oslo was premised on a 2-state solution. Well, Netanyahu has just admitted that he was never going to let that happen. He's been sabotaging it from day one. And the Israeli behavior right now, no one can ever trust Israel again. Israel has destroyed its reputation. It is a disgusting, despicable, genocidal regime that will never change. The day of Yitzhak Rabin is over. He was assassinated by a Netanyahu supporter, and Israel has fundamentally changed. I think Israel's talked itself into a 1-state solution, and it ain't the one that Israel thinks it wants to have. Because I honestly believe what Israel's done is guarantee that in a decade there won't be an Israel. There'll be a Palestine. Jews will be welcome to live in there. But you'll find that when the Palestinian state is created, that many of these Zionists will flee because they don't want to live in peace with Palestinians. They are what I call the Brooklyn Jew class. And I don't mean that there's nothing anti-Semitic in that. Brooklyn Jews, that's it, class of people who feel free to fly into Israel and go to the West Bank and murder people and steal their homes and steal their land. And when confronted about it, they say, that's what we get to do. The courts back us up. The soldiers are there. These are Americans who go to Israel to murder Palestinians and steal their land. They aren't going to stay in Israel. They're going to try and come back to America. I'd like to believe that we pass laws that say you're not welcome back here. You're on your own. But it's over for Israel. I think Israel has talked itself out of existence. That's the real implication of this fight.
If you went back to October 5th and you had done a survey of the Arab Muslim countries in the Middle East, you'd find that Hamas was not very popular in Egypt. Hamas was not popular, not much support in Saudi Arabia at all. Ditto for Jordan and for Turkey. What Israel has done in the last 3 months is they've turned Hamas into a sympathetic figure, or at least one that the Egyptians, the Saudis, the Jordanians, and the Turks have to pay attention to. If for no other reason, just to placate the guy in the street that's really upset by what they're seeing Israel do to the Palestinian civilians. So it has actually made Hamas stronger. That's the irony of this. It's made Hamas stronger, not weaker. And, Israel's got this in their mind. They think that they can always kill their way out of something. And it's like they decided I think it wasn't it Netanyahu just announced that maybe they were going to do like Munich 2. You know, in the aftermath of the Munich Olympics, they sent out hit teams to kill all the perpetrators. Well, you know, number one, it was basically a failure as a mission because they killed a waiter up in Norway who wasn't even involved, had nothing to do with it. And they didn't get them all. And when the operation was over, it didn't stop the terrorist attacks. So, I mean, the goal of using force is ultimately to stop the attack. You know, I'm a firearms trainer and I teach people you never draw your gun and point it at someone unless your life is in imminent danger. And then if you have to point your gun and fire, but make sure you stop the threat. Once the threat's over, gun back in the holster. Well, Israel's never learned that. This policy of killing civilians is it's going to cost them. It's bad when a friend of mine, she's Jewish, she's a daughter of a Holocaust survivor, and I was at her house 2 nights ago. They had sort of a holiday party, and she comes up to me and whispers. She goes, "I'm watching what's going on over there, and the Israelis are doing to the Palestinians what the Nazis did to my mother." You know it's bad when you got a Jewish lady who's a Holocaust survivor who's making that comparison.
Thank you for tuning in to my latest video. I appreciate all of your support. This channel, however, needs your help. I am seeking to make this channel more sustainable in the long term and upgrade necessary equipment to ensure that this work continues onward and makes progress to give you all of the geopolitical analysis that you all deserve. For that reason, I'm asking you to become a member of my Patreon community at patreon.com/DannyHaiphong. You can find that link in the video description or in the pinned comment below. For whatever amount you choose to give, just know you are supporting independent media that you can't find anywhere else. Thank you so much, and I look forward to the next video.